Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Slappin Kpop podcast. I am Kayla, and today I am joined with Sammy.
Hello.
And we are here to talk about the last of the sort of like planned themed episodes we have for Asian Drama November.
As we've gone on, we have cared less and less.
Cared less and less. Also realized that this is a terrible format and we're never doing it again. Like, it's not.
No, this was awful.
We thought this was going to be such a great idea, and here we are with like we cut one of the shows out, number one, and then number two, it's just like I have like less and less to say the more that we've continued this theme.
Oh yes. I think it's mainly because we lulled ourselves into a false sense of security with Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
Because that was actually different.
Yes.
Than the show it was based on. It adapted the show it was based on.
And I think the fact that was adapted in like America versus like Korea is like such a big cultural difference as well that I think they had to do more to that show anyway to sort of make it work for a different audience. With all of these other ones, it's just being adapted into either Japan or to Thailand, where it's a little bit less that has to change.
You could have honestly just aired the show and it would have been fine.
Yeah, we don't need to remake it with just different actors, but with an identical storyline. Like, that's pretty unnecessary for essentially we found, all the rest of them.
We found a few changes with voice.
I don't think we have ever said that we're talking about voice yet, but we're talking about voice.
Talking about voice.
Yeah,
we're talking about voice.
Hello, we're here to talk about voice
and voice. Thailand and Voice 111 Emergency Control Room, which is Voice Japan.
Yep.
But at least when we were talking about Criminal Minds, that had a big jump because we got the Lee Joon-gi of it all. Yep. Love him. Mm-hmm. And then with Voice Thailand, they changed the story. The story got a little bit different, especially toward the end.
Yeah.
With these three versions of Voice, there really is no difference. Mm-hmm. They're identical.
The Thai version is literally like just a episode for episode remake of Voice Korea. Like, there are minimal changes there.
What I will say about the Japanese one, they cut some shit out because it's only 10 episodes. It is not 16 episodes. So they had to cut some things.
But it's like the same show, which is less of it. Like, there's like a little bit condensed, but it is like the bones of the show is still there, essentially.
The bones are the same.
Yeah.
So honestly, if I were to recommend anything, before you start, I usually say go watch the shows, make your own decision. Don't bother. Just watch the Korean one.
Really, just watch the Korean one because it's the original. I think it's still honestly the best out of them. It also has an additional 3 seasons, which are also pretty good. And the other 2 are just like weird, like just imitations of it that are almost the same thing, but a little bit worse. So
a little bit different.
Yeah, so for people who are unaware of what the Kdrama Voice it's essentially about a woman. She works at a 911 emergency call center, and she has this sort of superhuman ability to be able to hear sounds that like normal human ears like can't detect. And so when she's on like these emergency calls, she can sort of pick out background noises to help like the other people, I don't know, like the cops and whatever, like it helps them like locate where the people are, essentially.
Also, unlike what I originally thought before I watched the show, she's not blind.
She is not blind, nope.
I thought she was.
She just has like really good hearing. She is indeed not blind.
She is not blind. For a while, I did not watch Voice, but it was always on my list of a show that's very, very good. Mm-hmm. I thought she was blind.
Yep. For the Korean seasons, at least, she is there for all 4 seasons. The cast surrounding her will change depending on the season. The leading man will change. Yeah.
She gets a different male cop to fix every season.
You get a different, like, middle-aged, like, older, like, male cop.
With trauma.
Yep, he has a lot of trauma to work through, and that's essentially what they're for.
She's gonna help him work through it, but never is she gonna fall in love with him.
No. They have so much just emotional trauma to deal with that there's no time for that. Like,
we don't have time for love. All we have time for is justice.
Yep. Seasons 2 and 3 have the same male lead because those 2 seasons have like a connecting storyline, but 1, 2, and 3 and 4 have a different male lead. And then some of the call center staff stay. Like, there's another girl, she works at the call center. She is there most of the season. The other sort of police officers who are there will come in and out, and the other people who work there. Some of them stay multiple seasons, some of them don't. It really just kind of depends on who wants to make more versions of the show, essentially.
Who wants an easy paycheck?
Yeah. There is a younger, a character who is, like, the younger, like, male, like, cute guy, like, tech guy. He does all of their tech stuff for them, and he changes out every season. And I think it's funny because it's Ye-sung from Super Junior in season 1. You get, like, just an actor. I don't know his name, but you just get a young, cute guy in seasons 2 and 3. And then it is Sang-yoon from Winter in season 4. So
it's very fun. It's just, you know, cute. If only season 2 and 3 had another idol boy, it would have been cute.
Yeah, we just need a young, cute boy to be the tech, in charge of all of the tech stuff, so.
Which, again, it's Ye-sung from Super Junior, and knowing Super Junior, I'm not convinced the man knows how to work a computer.
Probably not.
He's very sweet, though. I love Ye-sung.
It is. That character is always just, like, sweet boy. Like, they have, like, big sweet boy energy, so. It's
big
nice.
Sweet boy energy that you want to protect.
Yes. Yes.
So, do you want to mention the main trauma of this season?
Sure.
Because that is, like, the overarching plot. Technically, the plot itself is quite... It's not so much episodic as case by case, because a case usually takes, 2 episodes?
Something like 1.5. It's like, the way with, like, Korean dramas work is that, yes, they're episodic, but when I say episodic, it does not mean per episode. It's like, it maybe will span like 3 episodes because it'll start at the end of one episode, take a full episode, and then get resolved at the start of another episode.
And then you start the next one.
Yeah, so it really just kind of...
It's like case by case.
It is, yeah. It's case... I think case by case is probably a better way to say it rather than episodic, because it's... The way that it's structured is kind of weird. But in season 1, and this is what the same shared trauma will be for the Thai and the Japanese version, is that...
It's all the same. Trust me, when we are giving character backstory here, it is the same
it's identical
backstory for all of them. Literally, all these shows start with the same... It's a good beginning scene.
It is. It's a good
opener.
Really good
opening
good
opener.
Scene. Yeah.
But it is once you get to the third time you've watched... I watched these 3 shows in pretty quick... Well, within a month.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to the third time you're watching it, it kind of loses...
You're watching a identical show, but just in a different language.
It kind of loses its luster at the third time.
Mm-hmm. But essentially, so the main character's father and the main male lead's wife have both been killed by the same serial killer.
Mind you, that the beginning scene is
the wife.
Is the wife getting murdered, and she calls the 911.
The call center.
I'm gonna call it 911.
The 911 call, the emergency call center. Yeah.
It is not 911 because 911 is the American emergency number.
Mm-hmm.
I think
it may be like 119 in Korea.
It's 119 in Korea. Yeah. It's 110 in Japan. I do not know what it is in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's, you know what we mean.
We know, we got the general idea here. We got
the general idea that she calls the emergency hotline, and the wife calls it, and the main woman picks up the phone and essentially hears her get murdered.
Yep. And
in all 3 of them.
Oh, yeah. And so this is kind of where her hearing comes in, is because when she was watching her father get murdered, essentially,
basically,
the serial killer has a weird, like, jaw clicking or thing happening, but there is some type of weird thing that happens when he talks that she can pick up with her hearing, and she hears it in the call from the wife, honestly, when the wife is getting murdered.
I think you should probably go to... If your jaw clicks that badly...
That's someone... Yeah.
You need to check that.
You gotta get that checked out.
Like, your jaw shouldn't click.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, but moving along.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, that is sort of the main overarching plot, is the fact that essentially they find... Because in the first episode, or the first beginning bit of this...
Yep.
the main cop gets, like, super... I mean, of course he's upset his wife was murdered, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But they find someone, and they're trying to convict him, but the main woman is like, no, that's not who I heard.
Mm-hmm.
And then that causes tension, and now they must, you know...
They always start off, like, not on the right foot. Like, every single male lead, even with seasons 2 and 3, they do not start off, like, you know, immediately wanting to work together.
And, so now, like, a year later or something, they have to now work together to solve crime. Yes. Yay for crime solving. Hooray. Also, I don't know if we're ever gonna mention it, but I'll mention it here. He has a sick son who I have no idea what's wrong with him.
Yeah, he does. He does have a sick child.
He has a sick child who is always in the hospital.
Yes.
But does not actively, like, the child looks fine. I do not know. We never get what is wrong with the child.
No.
Is he dying? Is he sick?
I think he's got some kind of chronic illness of some type.
But, like, if you have a chronic illness, you don't need to be in a hospital forever.
I don't know. They don't explain it super well. This is also the exact reason I get a lot of aspects of Voice confused with the show Duel, because the main character of Duel also has a sick child, and that's like a major point of that plot line.
See, that's the reason I also don't watch that many Korean crime shows. It's because they all tend to blur together for me.
They just overlap so much with a lot of just plot lines that it's really hard to keep straight which plotline belongs into what show. Yeah.
Weirdly, I kept getting, except for the fact that I would every once in a while remember, wait a minute, that happened on Criminal Minds because that happened in the American one.
Yes.
I kept getting individual cases in all the crime shows I've ever seen confused with each other.
Yeah.
Because, like, weirdly, they all have a very similar structure.
They're all structured the same, and they all, like, overlap with kind of, like, the individual cases a lot, because there's only so many, like, different crimes you can do portray in a show to begin with.
There's only really 2 that I would like to talk about, because this is going to be a short episode. Sorry, everyone.
Yep.
But facts.
This is probably a really short episode, not necessarily a good episode, but we spent a lot of time watching this show, so we are going to talk about it.
Yep. Because, like, for the most part, they're very episodic. The same crimes happen.
Yeah.
But the 2 main ones that I think are interesting, we can gloss over the other ones, I think, are the kidnapping one and the who is the actual serial killer.
Yeah.
Those are the only 2 that stood out to me, because both of them I found to be the most interesting. Because we have, like, a one that is, like, a murder, not a murder, like, a... You have the inciting incident, which is, like, a girl that's, like, running around through, like, a abandoned factory. Where is she?
I don't know. She is just, like, in a weird, like, abandoned factory neighborhood. He does kidnap her, and then has her just in a room, but then she's trying to escape, and then is calling
and, like, she is
on the
always
phone
calling.
with the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is sort of the first case where, like, they kind of have to prove, like, cop man has to learn that he can trust her to tell him where to go, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the other one I remember is the one with the mom and the kid.
Yeah.
With
the teeth. There's
the teeth. The one where the mom stabs the kid.
Yeah, but I remember there's aspect of it where I think the father is a dentist or something, so he has a wind chime made out of teeth, and that's like a sound that they pick out.
Which again, like, there's one thing that if you can hear things, that's fine. Why would you think wind chime of teeth?
I don't know why we had to make it specifically teeth. Number one, that's just weird for anyone to own.
Overall, that story essentially takes the place of, like, it's this, like, young, like, 9-year-old-ish boy.
Young kid, yeah.
Who calls 911, essentially is like, hey, my mom stabbed me. We're in our apartment. Come help, I guess?
Yeah.
I'm like, fair. You know what? Great kid. And, like, this mom has stabbed her son because, like, she's gone crazy. I think her husband's leaving her.
I don't remember the specifics of it.
I might be confusing that with a different crime show where that also occurs, but she has, like, having a mental break and stabbed her child, and this kid is slowly bleeding out because he's been stabbed.
Yep.
So they kind of are, like, racing to find, hey, where is this kid? because he's like a 6-year-old, so he doesn't actually know his address. Honestly, that makes perfect sense.
You know, true. I mean, if you're talking to a child and he is also just kind of hiding in random places, having also been stabbed, like, you know, fair. Like, you're not going to get a lot of information out of him.
Because he is in his apartment. Like, he's in an apartment building. Yeah. You should, if you had the address, it'd be real quick.
And I think he's, like, hiding in, like, the washing machine or something at one time,
he's
too.
He's hiding in, like, the washroom or whatever. Yeah. He might be in the washing machine
I think he's in the washing machine for part of it.
Because I think they try to imply that the mom is just gonna, like, drown him in a washing machine, which is a horrifying
It's really not a great,
But, like, they do not kill a child in a washing machine, because that's fucked. But, yeah, so that's the one. The two I want to mainly focus on are the incel plotline.
I do like that one. That one is fun. It's not fun, but it's not fun, but it's interesting.
It's different than what I've seen before.
Yeah.
You wanna talk about the incel?
So, I think what it is it's this girl has gone missing, and originally they think it's the ex-boyfriend who has done it because they just broke up, and apparently that didn't go that well, and so they're all thinking that
life, you know.
This girl was kidnapped by her ex-boyfriend because he's jealous and he wants revenge or something. He
wants her back, and then blah blah blah. It didn't go well.
You know, that seems fair, like a fair assumption to make.
Uh-huh.
Turns out the actual guy who's done it is this other kid who is kind of just like a friend to the girl. Mm-hmm. But he is like
he is quote unquote friend zoned.
Yeah, he's quote unquote friend zoned. He is definitely one of these like men you would consider call themselves a good guy, but is just really terrible. Yeah, he's definitely that.
He is very much of the Here's the thing. He has kidnapped her. I think he's burying her alive in one of them. I think maybe in the Thai version he buried her alive. But at some point, you just get a bunch of...
I think he was gonna film, like, he was gonna live stream, like, him raping her on, like, a website, and then also murdering her afterwards.
Yes.
Is essentially what it is.
And he has, like, this little lackey, too.
Yeah, he does have a friend who is just kind of there and doesn't know what the fuck to do, because his friend is like murdering a girl. Yeah.
Yeah, he's, like, full incel. Mm-hmm. And the thing with all of this is that it's a different take on it, which I enjoy. And for the most part, it ends the same way in all three of them.
Yeah.
I do think that the Japanese one hits it a bit too on the nose when I think he literally says, I don't think women are people. Or an equivalent to that, and I think that's a little too.
Yeah, that's a lot.
On the nose.
I also think the Thai version is way more like sexually explicit about it.
Oh, it really?
Than the other. Yeah, that one is a lot. The
Thai one is like he gets real close to the assault bit.
I will say about the Thai version in general. There's a lot of moments in that are definitely there's like a lot more like sexual like assaults or like harassment,
sexual violence
in general in all of the cases that involve women. Because even in that first case of where that girl got kidnapped and is like running through the building or whatever, there is a moment where he's caught her and is essentially about to like, I don't know what he does. I think he like just straight up decapitates people or something. But there's a moment before that when he has her like pinned to the ground and it's very, very just not like, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. The Thai one does bring in a lot more sexual violence that I think none of the other ones are sort of allowed to because this aired on television.
Yeah. I think that's honestly like a common theme with a lot of like Thai shows generally, is that the sexual content in them is like a lot higher.
Yes, because similarly we've just talked about Let's Fight Ghosts. The main difference between the two was that there was more sexual content in that one.
Oh yeah.
I think it's just because they're allowed to do so in a way, and it's not as exploitative as I feel like sometimes American can be because they can't really show that much.
Yeah.
They don't show as much as like American TV, but they imply a lot more than anything Korean TV ever will.
Oh yeah. Because it's like a lot of these crime shows talk about like a lot of things like rape or like sexual harassment and stuff. Like one of the main plot points of Signal is that like a high school girl was gang raped, but we don't see anything of it. It is just spoken about.
It is spoken about and implied.
And we don't even really say those words ever out loud either. Mm-hmm. It's like you are kind of left to pick up the pieces of like what is happening with that, because we go so around, like beat around the bush with it so much that it's like
it's one of those things where it's like you can't even say like if you don't want to think about it, you can kind of avoid talking about it.
Yeah.
But if you're picking up the signs, you're getting it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But also, because they can't say it, none of that can be a plot, like a major plot point.
Right.
Because they're not actually saying any of the words that... So, that's... And so, at the end of that plot line ends with them getting the guy, and he ends up being murdered by the serial killer.
Yes.
Now, mind you, in the Korean one, he ends up being burned alive, which I found quite satisfying.
Yes.
In the other ones, he does not get burned alive.
Not burned alive.
It is
much less
boring.
So much more boring.
And honestly, the burning alive, top tier.
Mm-hmm. We like it like when the deaths are at least a little bit interesting.
Appropriate.
Yeah.
They're appropriate for what he was doing. The other thing I will say is that the budget of all of these shows is very different.
So different.
So Korea gets a very large... Because I think that's probably why they were allowed to burn him alive. Because they actually had a budget. I think
crime shows honestly get a pretty good budget, decent generally. Because I've never watched a Korean crime show that I was like, wow, this was like made with zero budget.
The thing with it is I also think that they don't need that much of a budget. Because
they don't.
They're not like... Because even with like your... Because they don't have to make them look gorgeous.
No, because it's like
we're like dirty and grimy.
Yeah, and I think that definitely helps. It's like
and
they can make a really good show without the budget.
Yeah, like they have they know where to put the budget.
Yeah, because they put a lot of budget, I think, into that emergency call center, because that always looks great every time. Yeah,
but like when everything else is a dilapidated building, I think you can save money on that.
Yep.
And then the Thai one has a pretty decent budget. It looks pretty equivalent to the Korean one. Mm-hmm. It's a little less budget, mainly just because I think the Thai shows get less budget. And then Japan looks like a J-drama.
Because J-dramas don't have budget. Like,
J-dramas just don't get budget.
Generally.
Japanese television does not get a budget.
No. I don't understand why, but every Japanese show I've watched, with the exception being literally Alice in Borderland, because it was a Netflix show, has like absolutely zero money, but that's just a Japan problem.
That's
a Japan issue. Like that's a media problem,
television problem.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think that's probably why they couldn't burn him alive.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the main serial killer, who is very different in all. Not very different. The Thai one and the Korean one are very similar.
Yeah.
The Japanese one, I think, because of its shorter runtime, made everything a little bit more explicit very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And changed the ending greatly.
I will say there are two other cases. There's really only two other cases I remember at all about season 1 of Voice. I'll just mention quickly. One of them involves Ye-sung, where he somehow gets information that someone is gonna drop like hydrochloric acid on in a dance, like a club, essentially. And so he goes in there, takes a person hostage with a knife, and is trying...
For reasons.
And is trying to communicate back to the emergency call center team, like, using code words, essentially, that someone is gonna drop, like, hydrochloric acid on everybody.
I remember that episode now.
Yeah.
It was... Okay, I know it's supposed to be super intense, but watching Ye-sung...
Just, like...
hold a man hostage is... kind of funny.
And then it's like
meant to be funny.
It's not, but it is. And he's also just saying like high color laser, I think, because it's supposed to stand for HCl. And I'm just like, that was a word to pick, but okay.
I mean, sure.
And then in the Thailand, I remember it's the same thing, except he just actually just says NH3 because apparently they're doing ammonium gas instead of like hydrochloric acid, which honestly probably easier than to gas
acid.
A room than to drop acid on a room. Yeah.
Because I feel like dropping acid on a room, like, the logistics of that is very, like, where is it coming from? Like, where you putting in the sprinkler system? Like, what's happening?
Also, I will say there are better acids to use other than hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is very high acid, but there are better ones. You could
Kayla, don't give people ideas. I don't want to be I don't need the FBI right now.
As a person who studies chemistry, hydrochloric acid is, like, very commonly used for chemistry, so I do think it's probably better accessible than, like, more dangerous ones, but
that's probably why they use it. I don't think that they are, like, you know, a terrorist they are a terrorist organization.
I don't remember the specifics as to why that person was dropping acid on a club, but sure.
Here we are.
He was doing it.
He was attempting to do it. It didn't work out. Good for Yesung.
Didn't work out.
Did a good job.
Did a good job. He was just holding them hostage to essentially buy time. So you know what? Fair. Good job, Yesung. Sure. The other one I remember was that they get called in for at a psych ward, and
they do.
Essentially it's like one of the patients there is supposedly gone crazy and is attempting. I think he's holding a person hostage, like one of the staff members attempting to kill them.
There's a lot of hostage situations.
Yeah, so they de-escalate that situation. They have the man who's gone crazy, they send him back into the psych ward. They think everything is all well and good. Turns out that man is not crazy, and the psych ward is essentially a big front for, like, organ trafficking. So they, I forget what happens, but I think it's something the man had said and, like, just weird vibes they picked up while they were at the psych ward that caused them to go back and investigate it further. And then they find all these people who are, like, patients of the psych ward just, like, trapped in a back room, and then they find all the evidence of the organ trafficking and whatnot. So that one was also kind of interesting. That one was fun.
Yeah. So yeah, I find a lot of the cases are good, but they are very samey.
You get sick of them when you watch them, like, more than once.
Back to back.
Yeah, just essentially exactly the same thing.
True. So now we have the main serial killer. He turns out, surprise, he's rich.
He's rich.
Are we shocked? No.
Nah, yep. Just
so
rich.
He's also got a rich dad.
His father's real rich, yeah.
So I think that's really where we get a huge difference between the Korean and the Japanese one, because the Korean one has a lot more things occur. Than in the Japanese one. So do you want to go through the events of the Korean one?
I don't remember a lot of it, honestly.
So he ends up, like, they find him, dad gets him off, then they like put him back in jail, dad helps him escape, then they, like, incapacitate him and put him in a coma.
I was like, is this the one?
They go back and forth like 8 times.
They have a weird, like, basement thing or something, do they? Or or am I thinking of a completely different show?
They might.
Like a murder basement.
I don't think.
Because that might be a different show.
Yeah, that might be a different show. Yeah, and it's interesting, because it's a rich killer. He kills people with, like, a fucking
like a dumbbell or something.
Like a dumbbell.
Yeah.
Like it's a kettlebell. It's a kettlebell.
Yeah.
And in the Japanese one, he keeps all the kettlebells as trophies with, like, little nameplates in front of them, and I'm like, one, that's a really easy way to get caught, and two,
yep.
There's like 40 of them. You've killed 40 people.
Way more people.
In the Korean one, they never tell you how many people he's killed. But it does not seem like he is, like, a massive serial killer who's just, like... Because I feel like if you find 40 bodies with their heads smashed in...
Yeah.
Put some things together, sir. As opposed to, like, in the Korean one, it's implied that it's, like, a couple. Like,
yeah.
I never imagined it was more than, like, 10 max.
That's
this
actually very
like
similar
40.
to the main antagonist of Voice Season 2, where he has, like, an entire lair where he literally has, like, trophies of everyone he's killed, and all this information just blatantly displayed, and his lair is literally in, like, the basement, like, storage unit of the apartment building
like,
he lives in.
His home. Yeah. He's in, like, it's in his, like, house, and I'm like, what?
This one gets me even more because
this have this
in season 2, it's in literally a storage unit of his apartment building. So it's not even his own home. It's not like even other people live there.
Other people are just like, hey, what's this? Oh, it's painted red. Fun.
And I'm just like... And this happens once where a woman asked him, he's like, can I store a couch in your storage unit? And he's like, no, like, what the fuck, go away. And this woman, like, will not, like, let it go. And so he lets him bring the couch in, and then he kills her immediately, because of course he does, because this literally has his evil plans displayed all over his room. Like,
that's garbage. That's awful.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's where they got the idea from. But
maybe.
Yes. So in the end, in the Korean and the Thai one, Kayla and I have had this discussion before where we're trying to figure out what the ending means.
Yes. So because it's left really ambiguous.
It is left in one of them. It is left in the Korean one. I think it is more ambiguous than in the other two.
Yeah.
So in the end, they have this big confrontation, and so in both of them, the rich father feels so guilty that his son is a serial killer that he kills himself.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. I get it. You raised a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. But after their big confrontation on I think a rooftop, the villain ends up in a wheelchair in a psychiatric hospital, like kind of comatose, but like he just can't really move or speak, whatever.
Right.
And at the end of the Korean one, there is this scene where like a doctor rolls him into a room and he's attacked by all the other like inmates, patients, or whatever you want to call them, and it's implied he is killed.
Yeah.
However, in the Thai one, that happens, but then we kind of like zoom out, and this is all just happening in a prison of his own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's still just sitting there comatose. So, like,
so he's going through like mental distress, or I don't really know.
Yeah.
But just
so
in
my
a coma.
question is, yes, my question really is, did he die in the Korean one?
Because they're not very explicit about whether or not he's dead. Like
the fact that I could believe, yeah, sure, this is hyper reality. Sure, let him die at the end through the violence befalls violence. I don't know,
because it also seems like that could just be like a mental, like he's reliving mental trauma or whatever. Yeah,
that too. Who knows? It could be either.
Who knows?
But
I don't know. It doesn't matter in the long run, because
it really doesn't.
Because that villain specifically will not return in any of the other 3 seasons of Voice anyway.
Well,
so
they did leave him
matter.
At best comatose, at worst dead.
So
both of those things, I don't think
either
allow
one
you to
is
return.
Fine. He's fine either way, I guess.
So then you have the Japanese one, where they've condensed the storyline a lot. Like, you don't have like the constant in and out of prison. You don't have the like struggles with like, hey, this rich family doesn't want us to talk to their son, blah blah blah. But they had to cut
out 6 hours worth of content. So
they did cut out a lot of content. But in the end, you get the dad of the serial killer, who's still rich, stabs his own son and then kills himself.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little on the nose. It's a little boring.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, you just ended up stabbing him to death. That's it?
Mm-hmm.
That's all we got. Okay. Sure.
A little bit less interesting, yeah.
Little less interesting. I found it kind of boring. Because at that point, alright, you could have stopped, you could have stopped him years ago. He had his trophies in his house.
Yeah.
Because you also get more backstory of the villain, at least in the Japanese one, where, like, he had a brother, like, he killed his brother, the dad always was slightly abusive, and there's that aspect to it.
Right.
But I also don't care, he's killed, like, 40 people.
Yeah, at that point, it's like, you know what, I get that you're troubled or whatever, but also, like, you're a serial killer, so...
It's a bit much.
Yeah. So that's main plot points of Voice 1.
That's the main plot points of Voice 1. Would you like to talk a little bit vague notions about what Voice 2, 3, and 4 are about?
Yeah, so I can go over Voice, the other 3 seasons of Korean Voice pretty briefly. So, season 2 and 3 have a connected arc. 2 and 3 also have a different main antagonist. but it is definitely overarching between the two of them. They have the same male lead, and the story, the two of them definitely connects very well. So season 2 is essentially our main antagonist. There is a serial killer. He likes to murder police officers, and in the process he likes to like chop off certain body parts of them as like little trophies and then sell them on the black market. And that's what the main thing we're going through there is. The male lead, he has a lot, like probably the most trauma out of any of the other male leads, because he was present when the serial killer was killing his partner essentially at the time. And he is for a long time blamed for that murder because they don't really have any leads on it and they think he did it. And then the longer we go into the story, and this spans over the course of seasons 2 and 3, we learn that his father is a convicted murderer already.
Oh no.
Of like a child. That he knew when he was growing up. They lived in Japan before, and his like father went to prison for the murder of like a little girl. And so that's why he's been getting a lot of the blame, because they're like, his father was already like a murderer. It runs in the family. That's also a thing that happens a lot in crime dramas, where it's like the father is a serial killer. All the time in
crime dramas. I think Korea thinks that being a murderer is being a serial killer is
hereditary. Yeah.
Because that also happened in not a stereotypical crime trope. That also happened in Flower of Evil.
Yes, it's like that's like a very big trope in Korea is hereditary serial killer.
Of course.
That
old trope.
So season 2 essentially ends up where a lot of things happen in that one. There is a really disturbing case involving a clown in that one, and that's I think the main one that I remember. But they essentially catch the main antagonist there at the end of that season, but then we realize that he is really just one part of this gigantic like other sort of black market organization that's going on. He just handled the like
market of serial killing,
just like random other things, like because he specifically was in charge of the like body parts, I guess. He would literally go get body parts out of from police officers and sell them there. But then he had a boss above him who was kind of controlling all these other things. Like there was involving snuff films and other types of illegal black market things. And then it turns out that we're gonna continue into season 3. Season 3 takes place a little bit in Japan because this entire time the male lead is sort of struggling with the fact that he thinks he's going crazy and that he's gonna turn into a serial killer. Because the more he sort of unravels his past, he starts to believe that he was actually the person who killed the girl when he was younger, and that his father just took the blame for him.
Okay.
And so he's struggling with all of these urges that he's gonna just completely break down. He's gonna break down one day and he's gonna kill someone. And, it actually is, not just a thing that he's going through in his own head. It is actually happening. You see him having, a breakdown where he is, on the verge of, murdering a person, essentially. It turns out at the end that the person who is running this entire black market is his older brother.
What the fuck?
And his older brother is the person who ended up killing he did kill the girl. But his older brother forced him to do it. And then the father saw, and then the father took the blame for it to protect him. And then I think he was told that his older brother was murdered by just, some random people one day.
Some rando.
Because they were upset that their father had killed, a girl, and so they murdered his older son, in revenge for that. But
turns out he ain't dead.
He's not dead, and he just went off to a weird orphanage or something. And then apparently the both of them went off to different orphanages because he got adopted into the cop got adopted into a Korean family, and then he just went somewhere else and started the black market. I guess I don't really know why that was the logical line for that, but he was already kind of crazy. But season 3 ends essentially with him murdering his brother, and then he gets killed by the police officers right at the end.
Oh, sad ending.
Yeah, sad ending. It was honestly probably the, like, best ending for him, because he, like, was going just completely insane. And the entire 2 seasons, you are just watching him, like, slowly, like, mentally deteriorate, like, more and more over the course of that. So I really like that 2-season block as a whole. I think it was really good, really creative.
Not fun, but
he is my favorite, I think, male lead of the 3 that we get in Korean voice, so I enjoyed that a lot. Season 4 is the most recent one that aired this year. And I do think it has a good concept in theory, but there's too many aspects going on that I think we needed to pick one thing or the other for the season to make, like, good logical sense. So the serial killer in here is a man. He has dissociative identity disorder.
Of course.
We're just gonna also mention that the portrayal of people with dissociative identity disorder as, like, it's serial awful. Killers, always is just completely awful.
Awful. It's just not real.
And it's, like, the only time where they're ever portrayed in media is just as, like, a villain or literally a serial killer, and that's in itself pretty bad.
Yeah, because otherwise they usually call it, like, a multiple personality disorder, and then you can portray it as sympathetic, but anything that's dissociative, they tend to only be murderers. Cold-blooded murderers. It's awful. I hate it.
That's pretty bad. This person, I think, has 4 different alters. One of them is a serial killer. One of them is a woman who is kind of a voice of reason. And then the other one is the main. So the main host
is one of them a child.
I don't think one of them is a child. Honestly, okay. I don't think we got a child alter this time.
Usually there's, like, one child alter or child. I'm trying to remember alter.
Because so the thing is that the reason he has it is because he went through massive trauma as a child, and that's how you form dissociative identity disorder. And I can't remember if at any point they brought out the fact that there was, like, a child with, like, child part or not. But the main host, I think, is unaware of the fact that his other alters are murderers for a little bit. But he becomes aware of eventually, I think.
Okay.
But the thing is that this whole plot, because I think that by itself, like, having the main antagonist have, like, dissociative identity disorder is a good enough of a driving point for just being the antagonist in general. But it also ties into the fact that he grew up in this weird religious cult, and the cult is run by his grandfather or grandfather. And he witnessed a murder as a child and how he formed this disorder. And they're trying to protect him because they are all aware of the fact that he has, like, a murderous intent. But
a murderous intent.
He wants to protect him because obviously it's his child. And they're also trying to portray how they're not a cult and they're not an evil cult and are just, like, trying to help people. And I think the fact that there are both of those things happening at the same time is too much.
It seems like a bit much.
It's really just too much generally for the season to handle, because both of those, I think you can either have a cult or you could have, like, dissociative identity disorder. You cannot have both of those happening at the same time.
You can't.
I also think that it doesn't help because the season, I'm pretty sure, is shorter than the other. It's only 14 episodes, so it's 2 episodes shorter than the other episodes of Voice, and so there really is not enough time to flesh out either of those storylines well enough, I think. And I think because I was expecting 16 episodes out of it, the pacing was a little off for me too. That by the time we're revealing the villain and everything, but then we're also having to untangle the fact that there's, like, a cult behind him as well, is just there was too much information there. I don't think it was a bad season, but it was just a lot. Yeah. There's apparently a season 5 in the works. I think
this one woman just keeps planning on returning.
Yeah, I do think that if we get season 5 is where we may reach the point with the show where it's like we really need to stop making seasons. Because they set it up a little bit at the end of season 4, where it looks like essentially she has been the main woman has been contacted by some organization
What?
That can tell her why she has the hearing powers that she does.
I don't care.
And I'm like, that's not a thing that we need to explain. And that seems like it's going to be the main driving point of season 5. And I'm like, we probably need to stop now. Like, this is where the point where it's like, we got too many seasons and we're just trying to explain more than we need to.
Is necessary?
Yeah.
Because it's not necessary?
It's not necessary at all to know where she has her hearing abilities. I think it's a nice aspect to the show that makes it very unique. But I don't think that is something that needs to be explained in depth in order to make the show, like, good or interesting. Just like how in Tunnel, I remember people were talking about how they were expecting them to explain the tunnel where he is able to go back and forth in time, but, like, seemingly with no reason, and it just never gets explained. And I'm like, I don't think we need to explain it. Like, I think it's better left unexplained because
the thing.
It's
you
just
don't have
like a driving
to
point.
Explain it.
No, and it's like, this is a crime show at its heart. We're not here to, like, make up some bullshit about time travel. Like, that just doesn't fit into the show at all.
You want to know what the worst thing about time travel is when you attempt... Because if you think about any form of time travel in any piece of media, it falls apart. Because time travel doesn't make any sense.
We just can't. We just need to recognize that it's a thing that happens, but we don't need to explain logistics of how it works. And I think that's perfectly fine.
I never want the logistics of time travel explained to me.
Yeah,
I actively hate when they are.
Because the more they try to, like, because, like, all of these shows will try to do it, where it's, like, we go into, like, the really, like, hardcore physics that is not real physics at all, and all of this stuff, and it's, like, you're just saying words, and, like, the people who don't understand it are gonna say, sure, whatever, it's fine, but, like, also time travel is such a weird concept that, like, you don't really need to give us, like, fake science terms as to how it works, because it's not gonna matter in the long run. Because it's not real. It's not real, yeah.
And also, if you open up any sort of supernatural anything, it becomes stupider. Stupider.
Even worse. Mm-hmm. But anyway, those are seasons 2, 3, and 4 of Voice. I would highly recommend seasons 2 and 3. I think those are really good. Season 4,
honestly, I'd recommend season 1. Honestly, watch season 1 too. It was fun.
Yeah, I think we're just sick of season 1 because I've
seen 3 of them.
3 of the same month. 3 of the same thing, but it is good.
I'm taking a break. I'm not watching season 2 for a while.
And I think the fact that it was seen as a good enough show to be remade in so many other countries just really speaks to, like, the quality of it to begin with. It's like the Boys Over Flowers of crime shows. Yeah. And it's honestly, it's really interesting to me that this show in particular was the one that got remade so many times, because I would have expected, like, Signal to be that one to be remade, but I mean, Voice is good. Like, there's nothing objectively wrong with it. I think it's a good crime show, so I get it. But it's also interesting
it's
that it was
sometimes very arbitrary what gets remade.
Yeah.
Because, like...
Let's Fight Ghost got remade, and I don't think Let's Fight Ghost was, like,
is particularly amazing.
A really top-tier show or anything, yeah.
Because, like, there's remakes of, like, Descent of the Sun, which we didn't talk about.
Scarlet Heart.
Scarlet Heart is a remake.
And then, like, the specific American shows that we decided to remake also seem to be random.
Like, we remade
Good Doctor. Good Doctor. They remade The Good Wife for some reason.
The Good Wife got remade in Korea.
Yes. Yeah.
And then The Good Doctor got remade into English. Mm-hmm. We remade what else? We remade a bunch of things that I cannot recall now.
There's a lot.
There's a lot, but I don't remember any of them right now.
Because we went through
there's gonna be a remake of Money Heist.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
A Korean remake of Money, which I honestly think might actually be decent.
I think that would be fine. It seems like it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah, they also did a remake of what's it called? Korea just did remakes of other shows, like Love So Beautiful, the K-drama from this year. That's a remake.
Yeah, they did. What is the movie? So I Married an Anti-Fan. That got a remake.
Oh, yeah, that got a remake into Korean. That's true.
Except I think they made it into a full show, didn't they? Because the original was just a movie.
Starring Chanyeol of EXO.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, like, they did Suits.
Oh, Mother's a remake. I didn't know that.
Oh, Mother's a remake.
Liar Game's a remake.
Mm-hmm. Like, there's a bunch of Korean remakes of
but it just seems like, the thing is that it just is arbitrary. Who just,
everything
like,
is slightly arbitrary.
Remade. Yeah.
Everything is arbitrary at the end of the day, because it's not like you can...
Because it's not like all, like, because there's a lot of top tier dramas that are, like,
not
remade, and I probably think that's for the best.
Mm-hmm. And a bunch of remakes are remakes from, like, shows from, like, the 90s.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think that's a very good time to remake things like, Boys Over Flowers keeps getting remade every couple of years because...
We also just keep unofficially remaking Boys Over Flowers by, like, not calling it Boys Over Flowers, but it's essentially Boys Over Flowers.
True. It's good. That'll be forever till we die.
We've gotten to the point where we're doing, like, meta Boys Over Flowers and, like, Extraordinary You, so...
True. Very true.
But yes, there are a couple of shows. I know we said we wouldn't do this before, but there's a couple of shows that specifically we talked about would maybe be fun to do a similar thing for again. Boys Over Flowers being one of them.
We will do this for Boys Over Flowers
because there's so much, like there's so much with Boys Over Flowers, and it's I think it's such a huge influence too on just Korean dramas.
I also want to rewatch Meteor Garden because I do think it is the best version.
Yeah,
and I think you would enjoy Meteor Garden.
I know, because I think I would, because it is just, I've watched a little bit of it. It does seem just like Boys Over Flowers, but like stomachable. So.
Yes, and also we're possibly getting this Thai version eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually, hopefully. And I've seen Boys Over Flowers too many times because it's hilarious.
And then before the Squid Game, if it all happened, and we kicked out Descendants of the Sun, we're going to talk about Death Note.
We might do that still.
We might do that because there is a live action J-drama. And both of us have been fans of like the anime manga Death Note, so that's another thing that might happen in the future. I cannot promise it will, but it might.
I'm not promising anything.
Yeah. Because I do think that one would be fun, and I think there's enough different things there, especially with the horrible Netflix movie, that would be interesting to talk about.
Which we've also seen.
Yeah. It's not good, obviously, but...
No, it isn't.
It would be fun to talk about and, like, tell you. Like, I don't think people even really need to be told how terrible it is, because people know it's terrible, but it would just be fun to talk about.
I just want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're almost at the end of Asian Drama November.
We have one more episode.
That's not going to be like a watching dramas of the same thing in different countries. That's just a tier ranking of dramas. We figured that would be a better way to end out the month.
It's a better use of my time than
it was way more fun than to do that than to watch
It's way longer than this episode, I'll tell you that.
It's like more than double the length of this episode, so.
Oh, yeah. But that was this episode.
That was Voice in Korea, Japan, and Thailand. So hooray. For the for the 5 people out there who wanted that content, here it is.
For the 5 massive American Voice fans.
Yes. So yeah. We are available on all major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we also have a YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes along with visual elements, if they have any, along with a extra bonus clip video every week. There's a lot of OST videos coming out for Asian Drama November, but there'll also be a lot of other stuff there too. So hooray. We also have a Twitter account and an Instagram that are linked in the description of every episode. And with that, we will see you in next week's episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.